my bachelor's in communication from Central Connecticut State University. And then I went on to receive my master's in advertising and my PhD in communication from Michigan State University. And then one of my first jobs out of grad school was working with a company called the Michigan Public Health Institute, where my job was basically to design, implement, and evaluate a variety of public health communication interventions. So that's where I really got started in being interested in this topic. And then for the last 14 years, I've been a professor in the Hugh Downs School of Human Communication at Arizona State University. I created this book because I could not find a single source that had all of the information I needed to teach my health communication campaigns class. Typically, what I and most other people do is we gather information from a bunch of different sources and then have our class read that. I thought it would be helpful to have all of the information in one place and written in a single voice. I think a combination of things make this publication unique. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, provides all the information that I think anybody would need to design and evaluate health communication interventions all in one space. Second, it focuses on a variety of different approaches to public health communication interventions. Third, and I think perhaps most unique about this book, is that for every theory, I include a measurement section. And in the measurement section, you can actually see how people measure the constructs from each theory. So that way, if you're ever doing a class project or a research report of your own, you'll be able to just pull out this book, look at the sample items, and then be able to adapt them for your own project. A third thing that I think is unique, and I do see this occasionally, but I don't see it as systematically as I try to do it in this book, but for every theory, I have a section on meta-analyses. And so all the meta-analyses that have been talked about or conducted for a theory, and then I begin by summarizing the meta-analyses to show what research suggests is true regarding a theory. But more importantly, I tried to figure out, who does this theory work best for, or what types of messages that are guided by this theory are most effective. So I tried to focus on when the topic and intended audiences that the theory would work best for. There's probably some other things as well, but to me, the combination of everything in one place, being able to measure things, after reading this book and having good sample measures and having a good summary of the meta-analyses and the things that work best from each approach, I think stands out to me. In addition to being a good textbook for advanced undergraduate classes or graduate classes on public health communication interventions, my hope is that the materials in here will also be a good resource that people can use on a day-to-day basis when creating messages or needing to evaluate messages. This book underwent extensive pilot testing. It was read by at least 10 professionals and professors who were experts in the areas in the chapters that they read. I used a preliminary version of it in my health communication and social marketing class, which is an undergraduate class dealing with this topic. And I also used an early version of it in my health communication campaigns class, which is my graduate class on the topic. So in total, at least 10 professionals, 24 undergraduates, and at least 24 graduate students were exposed to various chapters in this book and provided feedback on the book. And I'm very happy to report that their general impressions were very positive, and the chapters were very well received. And it led to some very worthwhile feedback that I was ultimately able to incorporate in the final version of the book. So everything's a little bit clearer than it might have been had I not gone through that entire process. Support materials for this book will include an instructor's manual, PowerPoint slides, and eventually scripts for the PowerPoint slides. The instructor's manual begins with an introduction, and then it includes 2 sample schedules, one for an advanced undergraduate class on the topic and one for a graduate level course on the topic. That's followed by 4 assignments that I've used in my classes successfully for many years, including a couple that are good for undergraduate classes and a couple that are good for graduate classes. And then it culminates in a section for each chapter that includes a list of key terms that you can provide your students for review. This is followed by a list of open-ended questions that you can use either as a review for students or that you can use for essay or short answer items on exams. And then it includes a series of question pools for the various topics in each chapter. The thing I particularly like about this instructor's manual that I've not seen in other instructors' manuals is that question pools that I mentioned. So for example, there may be a pool for topic A that includes 3 or 4 questions, and then you can select one question for one exam and another question for a different exam. So for example, if you're teaching 2 of the same class in a given semester and you don't want people to have the exact same exam, you can select separate pools or items from each pool. Or if you have a class where people are sitting very close together because it's a large class or in a small room, you can create different versions of the exams. Again, it will cover the same material, but with different questions. And then most importantly, with more and more people teaching online, you can just enter the entire question pools into a program like Canvas or Blackboard, and then have it just randomly select a question on each topic from each pool. In this way, no student will ever have the exact same exam twice, either during a semester or across semesters. So in addition to the instructor's manual and test bank, I'll also be creating a series of PowerPoint slides for each chapter. So for example, for the theory chapters, I may have one set of slides that focuses on introducing the theory, another set of slides that focuses on how to measure the variables in the theory, and a third set of slides that deal with meta-analysis results for the theory. So I'm going to create these as separate files, and then you can combine them so you can pick and choose what you would like or not like to cover in each chapter, depending on the class, depending on whether it's a graduate or undergraduate class. Finally, the last resource that will eventually be available is scripts for the PowerPoint slides. I teach quite a bit online, and I have worked out some pretty nice systems for creating my presentations and lessons online. And I find it very helpful to pretty much write out scripts of what I want to say, and then get familiar with the scripts and then read them, as opposed to having a lot of off-the-cuff things that might distract from the lecture. So ultimately, what I plan to do for the PowerPoint slides is create scripts that you or other people can use to create online lessons, or just to record lessons, which is something that I think is becoming more and more common after the pandemic. Students in my class, for example, have said that they liked the recorded lessons from Zoom. So what I've actually done is created lessons that are recorded for all my classes. And so that way, if a student misses a lesson, they can go online and watch a lesson. So for both online and in-person classes, I think it's worthwhile to have recorded lessons. So eventually, I plan to develop scripts that will allow you to record these lessons very easily. Experiences with Kendall Hunt were excellent. I knew when I started this project that it was going to take a lot of time and require a lot of pilot testing. And Kendall Hunt gave me the time and resources that I needed to make sure the book turned out the way I wanted it to turn out. So just to give you one good example is that very early in the process, they created a couple of formatted chapters for me. So that way I could not only pilot test the content of the chapters, but I could pilot test how the chapters looked and get student feedback on that as well. And this led to some changes that I think were also very worthwhile in the final draft of the book.